12 years she hid her identity, leaving her Navy past to live an ordinary life. Ava Kingston had once been one of the fiercest Navy SEALs, witnessing horrors that only those like her could survive. After a failed mission that cost her the only teammate she ever trusted, Ava chose to walk away. The bloodshed, the loss, it all haunted her too deeply. She left it behind, burying her past, and became just another office worker, living quietly, hiding who she truly was. But when a call came from Eric Blackwood, "Ava, you're the only one who can save us," Ava knew she couldn't run anymore. Her past was calling her back, and this time there was no escape. She stood in her small apartment kitchen phone, pressed to her ear, the hum of the fridge, the only sound besides Eric's urgent voice cutting through the line. Ava's hand tightened on the counter-edge knuckles, going white, but her face stayed, even eyes fixed on the cracked tile floor. She hung up after a short, "I'll be there," and grabbed her keys without a second glance at the mirror. The drive to the old meeting spot felt longer than any deployment, the city lights blurring past like distant flares. The weight of Eric's voice had ripped the silence from her life like a flash grenade. Every muscle in Ava's body, dormant for over a decade, subtly coiled, awakening memory, traces she thought she had chemically eradicated. She didn't just feel urgency, she felt the phantom weight of a 60-pound pack settling onto her shoulders, the precise muscle memory of sighting down a rifle's barrel, the cold, sharp efficiency of zeroed-in focus that office life had blurred. Her breathing automatically dropped to a military box pattern. 4 counts in 4. Hold. 4. Out 4. Hold. A silent physical necessity to control the sudden spike of adrenaline that tasted like rust and gunpowder. This was not merely a call to action. It was a physical undoing of 12 years of careful camouflage and the residual terror of the battlefield, which she had tried to numb with the dull thud of 9-to-5 existence pulsed violently beneath her skin. She had to remind herself that the cracked tile floor was solid, not the shifting bloody sand of a long-ago desert. The company party was in full swing at the downtown hotel ballroom, all crystal glasses clinking and fake laughs bouncing off the high ceilings. Ava stood near the edge of the crowd, in her simple black dress, nothing flashy, hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, no jewelry except a thin watch. She sipped water from a plastic cup, watching her coworkers mingle. Jim Holloway, her boss, a broad-shouldered guy in his 40s with a tailored suit and a watch that cost more than most cars, spotted her and waved her over with a big grin. "Ava, come join the real conversation," he boomed, pulling her into a circle of executives. Lydia Frost, her closest friend at the office, a sharp-dressed woman with highlighted hair and always a step ahead in heels, was already there chatting away. The group included a few others, Mark the sales lead, loud and always closing. Sarah the marketing head, all smiles but eyes scanning for better connections. And Tom, the finance VP, quiet but judgmental. Jim clapped Ava on the back a bit too hard. "So Ava here is our quiet little number cruncher. Keeps the book straight without making a fuss." He chuckled and the others joined in lightly. Lydia shot Ava a quick look, then leaned in closer to her. "Ava, you always dodge when we talk about family. What's the story? Come on, spill for once." Her voice was playful, but there was that edge of real curiosity. Ava just smiled faintly and shrugged. "Not much to tell." Jim overheard and laughed louder. He probably grew up in some boring suburb with nothing but spreadsheets for fun. Office drones like her don't have exciting backstories. Mark jumped in, swirling his whiskey. "Yeah, look at her. Plain dress, no bling. You crashed this party or something. Ava security let you in." The group tittered and Sarah added with a fake sweet tone, "Honey, next time wear something that says you're part of the team. That outfit screams intern." Sarah then stepped closer, leaning in as if to share a conspiracy, but loud enough for the entire circle to hear. "No, wait," she said, her voice dripping with pitying concern. "It screams sad. You know that look of someone whose life peaked at a high school algebra test. No vacation photos, no dating profile updates, nothing. Ava, darling, we worry about you. Maybe you should invest in a personality, not just a spreadsheet filter." Tom, not needing words, slowly lifted his hand palm up and pointedly ran his thumb and forefinger together in a tiny zero-shaped gesture, indicating her entire value and presence in the room. Mark then offered her his half-empty glass of expensive scotch with a flourish. "Here, take a sip." You look like you need something strong enough to make you feel anything for once. Or maybe you can't handle it. Too much excitement for the quiet one. Ava met his eyes, and the flicker of something cold and utterly still in her gaze, a look that could freeze a man, mid-breath was so brief, so controlled, that only Lydia standing closest caught it, and instinctively took a half step back, realizing the tension in the room was no longer about office politics. Ava simply and slowly shook her head, not breaking eye contact. Ava set her cup down slowly on a nearby table, the clink soft but noticeable. She met Mark's eyes. "Does it bother you that much?" Just that calm and direct. Mark blinked, then recovered with a smirk. "Bother nah, just saying fit in or stand out for the right reasons." Tom leaned against the bar, eyeing her shoes' simple flats. "Those aren't even leather. What thrift store, special Jim you hiring from the bargain bin now?" Jim waved it off but grinned. "Ava's reliable, that's all that matters. Though, yeah, a little Polish wouldn't hurt." Lydia tried to steer away. "Guys, lay off. She's fine." But Sarah wasn't done tilting her head. "Fine. In this room, sweetie, you're like a ghost. No makeup, no style. How do you even get noticed around here?" The laughter grew, a few more heads turning their way. Ava picked up her small purse, adjusting the strap over her shoulder with deliberate care. She looked at Sarah. "I get noticed when it counts." Then she turned to Jim. "Excuse me," and walked away steady steps through the crowd, not rushing, not looking back. The group went quiet for a beat. Then Jim muttered, "Touchy tonight." Lydia watched Ava go, biting her lip, then followed a moment later. Outside in the hallway, Lydia caught up. "Hey, that was rough. You okay?" Ava nodded once. "I'm used to it." But her hand paused on the elevator button, fingers lingering a second too long. Back at the office the next week, things settled into routine, but the party lingered like a bad smell. Ava sat at her desk, plain blouse and slacks, typing reports, while the open plan floor buzzed. Jim stopped by, often dropping files with comments like, "Make sure this looks good, Ava. You're good at invisible work." Colleagues passed her cubicle without much notice, except when they needed something fixed quietly. Lydia popped in during lunch, carrying salads. About the party. They were jerks, but why do you let them talk like that? Ava forked her food without looking up. "Words don't change facts," Lydia pressed. "But your family, come on, you've never said a word, not even where you grew up." Ava's fork stopped midway to her mouth, then continued. "Some things stay buried. 3 months before the party, a genuine corporate catastrophe had hit. An aggressive new ransomware virus had locked down the company's entire European financial infrastructure, demanding an untraceable cryptocurrency payment. Panic had seized the executive floor. Jim was screaming for IT, but the clock was running out on a multi-million-dollar quarterly transfer. Ava had watched the chaos, then quietly walked into the empty data center during the night shift, bypassing the baffled security guard with a simple, untraceable verbal command that made him question his own shift schedule. She didn't use IT resources. Instead, she used a forgotten ancient terminal hidden beneath a dusty maintenance access panel, typing at a speed that blurred her hands, cycling through zero-day exploits and proprietary code structures that no commercial hacker would know. Within 3 hours, she hadn't just removed the ransomware, she had traced the attack vector back to a compromised government server, 3 countries away, planted a digital canary to monitor the threat group, and most importantly, completely rewritten the compromised server's logging functions to erase her own deep dive, making it look like the problem resolved itself when the transfer window expired. Jim took a massive bonus for courageous leadership, while Ava simply accepted a single slice of lukewarm office pizza as her reward, ensuring the only person who knew the truth was the panicked security director whose memory she let fade. The days dragged with meetings where Ava contributed numbers that saved deals, but credit went elsewhere. Mark presented her analysis as his own in a boardroom full of suits. "See team effort," he said, winking at the room. Ava just nodded from her seat at the back. Sarah organized team photos, positioning Ava off to the side. "You blend into the wall anyway," she whispered with a giggle. Tom audited her work extra hard, nitpicking margins. "Sloppy for someone so unassuming." Ava handed over revised sheets without comment, her signature neat at the bottom. Then the signal came. Ava's phone buzzed late one night, a sequence of tones she hadn't heard in years. She sat up in bed, heart pounding, but face blank, decoding it in her head. Eric's voice followed on the secure line. Ava, it's bad. Extraction gone wrong. Need your eyes on this intel. You're the only one who can crack it. She dressed in dark jeans and a hoodie, slipped out to a nondescript cafe downtown. Eric waited in a booth, rugged face lined with new scars, eyes scanning the door. Thought you'd ghost me? Ava slid in opposite. What's the sit rep? They hunched over a tablet, maps and codes glowing. Eric pointed. Hostiles embedded in corporate cover. Your firm's involved somehow. Ava's jaw tightened, but she traced patterns with a finger, unlocking layers. There. Weak point. Eric then brought up a satellite photo showing a recently constructed solar farm in a remote region of the Philippines, and beneath the overlay of panels, Ava identified faint recurring shadows that indicated reinforced subterranean construction. He explained that her firm had acquired the land rights under the guise of green energy investment. Ava's eyes narrowed on the associated financial ledger Eric displayed, where the construction costs for the solar farm were inflated by exactly the cost of a sophisticated, self-sustaining, off-grid bunker complex, complete with advanced communications arrays and secure power generation. This wasn't just money laundering. Jim and his associates were building a forward operating base. The corporate cover was designed not just to hide money, but to create a critical, strategically located infrastructure node for the hostiles, giving them a foothold right next to vital international shipping lanes, effectively escalating the operation from financial fraud to a direct threat to geopolitical stability. Ava silently pushed the tablet back, needing no more explanation of the severity. Reluctance pulled at her, but she agreed to more. Meetings in shadowed lots, old habits kicking in, checking mirrors, varying routes. Lydia noticed the late nights. You're disappearing again. What's going on? Ava deflected. Extra projects. But Jim piled on work, sensing distraction. Focus, Ava. Or maybe you're not cut out for the pressure. In a staff meeting, he singled her out. Ava's numbers are off this quarter. Step it up or step aside. Snickers rippled. Ava stood to present corrections, voice steady. Actually, the error was in the input data from sales. Mark flushed. Excuse me. Ava laid printouts down. Here, and here. Jim waved her off. Sit down. We'll handle it. The mission escalated. Eric pulled her into a briefing with a small team of former operators, warehouse on the outskirts, dim lights and folding chairs. Gentlemen, Ava Kingston, best intel analyst we had. Murmurs spread. One guy, burly with tattoos, squinted. The Ava thought she bailed after that cluster in the sandbox. Ava took a seat, unfolding a laptop. Let's focus on the now. They dove in her breaking encryptions while they planned insertions. Lydia somehow roped in as a civilian liaison for logistics. Jim's idea to observe sat in the corner, eyes wide. Ava, this is... you... Ava didn't answer, fingers flying on keys. The burly operator, a man named Riggs, crossed his arms and let out a single dismissive snort, his gaze lingering on the delicate curve of Ava's fingers on the keyboard. He didn't speak, but his posture was a challenge, a solid wall of judgment designed to make her flinch or defend herself. Ava felt his stare without acknowledging it, her focus entirely on the screen. Then, in the middle of typing a complex encryption key, her left hand paused and without looking up, she slipped her index finger into the narrow space between the laptop keys. She applied the subtlest counter-pressure enough to activate a silent distress alarm that only a trained operator would recognize, a signal for hostile presence, eyes on me. Riggs, mid-sneer, instantly read the unspoken communication, a jolt of recognition hitting him as he understood that her civilian disguise had not dulled her peripheral awareness one fraction. He slowly uncrossed his arms, dropping his gaze to the floor, in a gesture of grudging acceptance. The silent exchange between them, lasting less than 2 seconds, but resolving their hierarchy in the room. Lydia sat frozen in the shadows, her eyes darting between the enormous tattooed men, and Ava, who seemed to transform before her very gaze. The sharp, nervous energy Lydia knew from Ava in the office, the almost painful silence, the avoidance was gone, replaced by an unnerving, hyper-calm competence. The air around Ava was different. It held a palpable edge of danger, like standing too close to a high-tension wire. When a technical map of encrypted server backdoors flashed up, Ava pointed to a block of code calling out its weakness in fluent, rapid-fire Russian. that none of the other operators except Eric understood. Lydia realized that the Ava she had shared salads with and discussed weekend plans with was just a shell and impeccably maintained illusion. The quiet little number cruncher was a ghost walking among them, and the reality of who Ava was, a multilingual high-level operative working outside the law, was making Lydia's skin crawl with equal parts fear and bewildered admiration. Jim arrived late to one session, blustering in with coffee. "What the hell is this Ava you're on company time?" Eric stood. "This overrides," Jim laughed. "Overrides she's my employee, a paper pusher." Ava looked up slowly. "Not anymore." The room tensed. Lydia whispered, "Ava, explain." But Ava packed her bag calm. Later, accusations flew in the following days. Old teammates cornered her post-brief. "You ran, left us hanging." Another coward's way out. Ava faced them head-on. "I left to survive. You needed that mission to end." She walked out, boots echoing on concrete. Lydia trailed. "Seal you all this time." Ava paused at the door. "Yes." Jim, overhearing scraps, confronted her in the office parking garage. "Playing spy ridiculous. You're fired if this is some game." Ava leaned against her car. "Check your own deals first, Jim." The tension peaked when Jim, realizing he was being watched, took an aggressive preemptive strike. Under the guise of a routine security patch rollout, he initiated a complex low-level financial virus designed to destabilize the company's long-term stock value by subtly misreporting revenue growth to external auditors over the next quarter. The real goal was not to make a quick profit, but to force a massive panicked sale by major institutional investors, allowing his co-conspirators to buy up the devalued shares through shell corporations, netting billions while simultaneously creating a smokescreen of corporate incompetence to hide his other crimes. He walked through the office that day with a triumphant, unsettling calm, knowing his digital trap was laid certain that no one, least of all his quiet accounting clerk, would ever see the code buried deep inside the company's ledger API. Ava, sitting at her desk, watched the network activity on a hidden terminal window that displayed the firewall's raw logs, looking like she was compiling budget data. She saw Jim's signature file injection, and without shifting her posture, she executed a command sequence that would have been blacklisted by any ethical government. This wasn't a defense, it was a counteroffensive. She didn't stop the virus. She immediately mirrored its trajectory, allowing it to begin its work, but simultaneously injected her own payload, a digital worm, that specifically targeted and locked onto Jim's secure personal offshore accounts and his private communication server. Her worm was a silent scavenger gathering evidence, tracing ownership layers, and most importantly, preparing to execute a complete irreversible data wipe and zero-sum financial transfer on all his accounts the moment he tried to remotely access them, a financial booby trap designed to leave him with nothing but the clothes on his back, visible only to Eric's team. She then printed out a single blank sheet of paper and left it in the tray, a silent signal that the trap was set. The week before the emergency boardroom meeting, the low-level mockery became a coordinated, vicious attack. Jim had Mark, Sarah, and Tom organize a casual Friday recognition ceremony for Ava, forcing her to stand awkwardly near the water cooler. Mark gave a mock speech about her commitment to beige excellence, while Sarah projected a PowerPoint slide onto the wall, showing a stylized ghost icon with the words, "Employee of the Quarter, Ava Kingston. Her dedication to blending in is truly invisible." Tom then presented her with a small, clear acrylic paperweight shaped like a tombstone, engraved with the words, "Here lies Ava's exciting backstory. May it remain forever buried." The laughter that followed was not light. It was cruel, intentional, and designed to break her down in front of the entire floor. Ava looked at the paperweight, then at Jim, who was grinning from his office doorway, and the cold stillness in her eyes solidified into a dangerous, perfect calm, showing zero reaction to the public evisceration. She simply placed the tombstone on her desk, thanked them with a single slow nod, and went back to work. A chilling act of non-engagement that left her tormentors unsettled. Ava's analysis pinpointed corruption in company funds, funneled to shady ops, Jim's signature buried in layers. Eric called. "He's the link. Corporate cover for the hostiles." Ava met the team again, laying out evidence on a projector. "Trafficking arms through our accounts." Gasps. Lydia covered her mouth. "Jim, Old doubts surfaced in heated exchanges. A veteran sneered at Ava. Why trust the deserter? She countered by hacking a live feed exposing a deal in progress. Because I see what you miss. That night before the final action, Ava drove past the office and then continued to an unmarked industrial zone where an old decommissioned shipping container served as a secure armory and changing room. She peeled off the gray flannel, the sensible slacks, and the thin blouse, exchanging them for a Kevlar-reinforced composite suit, customized for maximum flexibility and minimal print. She laced up boots designed to be silent on marble or gravel, and strapped on a specialized utility belt, her movements economical and practiced. She checked the weight and balance of her secondary tools, a miniature server cracker and a microfiber cable, feeling the comforting weight of lethal competence return. Staring at her reflection in the dark polished steel wall of the container, the face that had been Ava Kingston the accountant dissolved. What remained was the operator hardened and devoid of sentiment, ready to walk into the single most public and high-stakes environment, a corporate boardroom as a weapon. Confrontation built in the boardroom emergency meeting, called. Jim presided smug. Ava's spreading lies, security escort her out. But Eric entered with feds badges flashing. James Holloway, you're under arrest. Chaos erupted. Colleagues stared as Jim was cuffed, protesting. This is insane, she's nobody. Ava stood quiet, arms crossed. Lydia approached, voice shaking. How long? Ava met her gaze. Long enough? Mark, Sarah, and Tom, who had been laughing moments before, stood transfixed, their faces draining of color, as the reality of the situation slapped them with brutal force. Sarah's lipstick-stained glass dropped to the plush carpet, the tinkle of crystal, a sudden tiny sound in the echoing room of silence. Mark's confident posture crumbled. He looked down at the printouts of Ava's data, seeing not just numbers, but the trail of his own career-ending lies now exposed. Tom, ever the observer, stared at Ava's simple flats and plain dress, suddenly seeing them not as signs of poverty or lack of style, but as a perfect deliberate concealment. The uniform of a professional who never needed flash because her effectiveness was absolute. The sheer scale of the deception, the fact that the woman they had routinely diminished and humiliated was a key figure in a massive federal investigation, taking down their boss paralyzed them, leaving them standing still like statues carved from pure sickening dread. Fallout hit fast. Mark's presentation theft, exposed in an internal audit, demoted to junior role. Sarah's snide social media posts about office frumps went viral after someone leaked the party video sponsors pulling endorsements. Tom lost his VP spot when his over-audits revealed favoritism. Jim faced charges firm in scandal. Ava didn't watch the news, just cleared her desk methodically. Eric, needing to guarantee the closure of the black market arms deal that Jim was facilitating, contacted Ava one final time. A key ledger recording the final shipment codes had been completely corrupted during the takedown, deliberately damaged by Jim's last-ditch automated kill switch. Ava met Eric in a back room of the federal building, where she was given the damaged data chip. She didn't use a powerful forensic computer. Instead, she used a tiny specialized tool that fit in her palm, connecting directly to the corrupted flash memory. For 45 silent minutes, she worked using pure binary manipulation to reconstruct the data structure piece by piece, bypassing the damage by reading the raw magnetic decay left on the chip's layers. When she finished, she handed Eric a single complete manifest, including the ship name, the cargo, and the final destination data that only existed because she had the patience and unique skill to recover the ghost of information from the chip's failing hardware. Weeks after the arrests, as Ava walked through a different city plaza, she felt a heavy, purposeful step behind her. It wasn't Eric. It was Riggs, the skeptical operator from the warehouse briefing, who blocked her path. He didn't speak the accusations that had haunted her for a decade. Instead, he simply held up his hand, displaying a deep crescent-shaped scar on his wrist, a mark she recognized as the defensive wound from their final desperate moments in that failed mission. The gesture was a silent demand for accountability. Ava looked at the scar, then met his gaze and slowly raised her own hand, showing the corresponding less visible scar on her forearm, where she had shielded him from a different angle before being forced to retreat. She then dipped her head just once, a silent acknowledgement of the shared cost, and the terrible decision she had made, a non-verbal offering of closure that only they would ever understand. Riggs stared at her for a long beat, his expression finally clearing from anger before he simply nodded and walked away. The ghost of their past mission finally quieted. Eric found her at the cafe weeks later. "Team wants you back." Ava shook her head, stirring coffee. Past is past. But she helped wrap the case remotely, skills sharp as ever. Lydia visited her apartment, bringing takeout. "I was blind, sorry." Ava accepted the food. "You see now?" She spent a final afternoon in her small apartment, packing the few items of sentimental value. She retrieved the clear acrylic tombstone from her desk box. Instead of throwing it away, she took a tiny diamond-tipped engraving stylus, a tool usually reserved for marking sensitive ordnance, and slowly carved a single-minded inscription on the clear base right beneath the mocking text. The inscription was a code, a 7-letter word that translated to survivor in the language of the fallen teammate. She put the paperweight back into the box, not as a symbol of their dismissal, but as a permanent quiet trophy of her hidden victory. In the end, Ava walked the city streets in her plain clothes head high. The mockery faded into irrelevance. She had faced the fire, emerged whole. People like her know the weight of silence, the strength in standing firm. Her pace on the sidewalk was no longer hesitant. It was a rhythmic, confident stride. When a young woman ahead of her dropped a vital ID card into a thick grating, Ava didn't hesitate. She didn't use her hands. With a single subtle, impossibly precise kick, she nudged a loose piece of trash, just so, creating a domino effect that caught the card on the lip of the grate, sending it skittering safely back onto the pavement, and then continued walking, without breaking stride. The young woman looked up in confusion, having seen nothing but a quiet figure passing by, completely unaware that a former elite operative had just used her world-class situational awareness and motor skills to solve a pedestrian problem. Ava didn't look back. She simply adjusted her plain shoulder bag, the weight of her choice to live an ordinary life, backed by extraordinary strength, finally feeling balanced. You've carried your own burdens, felt the sting of dismissal. But remember, your worth isn't in their words. It's in what you've endured and overcome. You matter just as you are. Where are you watching from? Leave a comment below and hit follow to walk with me through heartbreak, betrayal, and finally healing.